Hello, and I am Phil Elson, and we're here with Jesse Miller.
How is everyone today? We also have a guest today, Eric Custer.
Hello, Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Millhouse. Dr. Millhouse, excuse me.
So, this is the first podcast ever. So Jesse's going to be the cameraman here, I guess. So we can switch back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay, and let me add this on here. Uh-oh. This app can only be used by moderators of this Hangout.
Oh, which one is that?
Cameraman.
You want to do moderation?
You go for it.
I'll click around.
You're deciding the camera on this beast.
On this biznatch.
Switch off back and forth to your heart's content.
So did you get some topics today?
Yeah, let's go to some topics here. So, what do we have going on in the world? Well, we got a new pope. That's out.
Yeah, dude.
Latin American pope. What do you think about that?
Latin American. I think those are the only people that are Catholic
I'm sorry,
anymore.
first Latin American pope in over 1,300 years.
I think it's a good thing. I think it's a smart move on the Catholic Church that they are, the only people I feel like that are still Catholic are Mexicans or Latin American people.
Yeah. Well, you know what I've kind of noticed lately? The Catholic Church has been really utilizing Twitter, and I think I know why.
Why?
Because it's 7 years old.
Oh my God. Hold on a second.
So, topics. And thank you. Thank you. I'll be here all day. All right. So let's see here. Let's talk video games since we got Eric here. God of War Ascension. Opinions. Jesse, have you personally played God of War, or only observed the actual living Kratos?
You know me. I'm mostly an observer of video games these days.
Okay.
But it's actually Custer's been playing more of the multiplayer than anything. He went through the regular game and has been just stuck on the multiplayer, man. It's World of Warcraft for God of War.
Interesting. Okay. So Custer, how do you rank yourself? Are you getting your ass beat? Are you beating asses?
I'm getting my ass beat for the most part.
Are you?
I am and I'm not. I think it's really, really cool in how they have incorporated the different types of weapons for each of the individual classes that they have. Obviously, from like Hades to Ares, so on and so forth.
It's all about Hades or Ares.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty cool. But just go back to the original game, though. I think that what's really cool about it was something that you mentioned was the flow of the game. Some of the ways that you can kill some of your enemies are pretty impressive, and just the what is the word I'm looking for? Like something how you described it. The fluidness of Kratos is actually really, really impressive. But nevertheless, as we also discussed before, the downside of the story, I felt like they had just made the game just because they could, and the hardcore fans like we are buy it just because. But I mean, it's just kind of a big letdown at the same time. But at the same time, incorporating a brand new type of multiplayer system into that type of engine, I thought was really, really cool. If they actually expanded a little bit more, add extra levels, kind of like they did in WoW, and maybe put some new weapons in and some new levels, I mean, it could make the multiplayer system even more enjoyable for a longer period of time and keep the gameplay or the lasting appeal for the game a little bit more. Will they do that? I'm sure they won't, but overall, I think the game is like a good 8 out of 10.
They're cashing in on the game, so why not cash in on the DLC, right? I mean, they're already cashing in on the game, so why not cash in on the DLC?
Absolutely.
I mean, they can always just make more swords or more armor or more hats. We all know hats sell really well online.
Absolutely.
That's
funny.
Yeah, but, I mean, also being, kind of avid God of War players, you could say, from when the game first came out, us being so competitive about it to, now playing it now where it's just kind of become this empty shell of a game, in my opinion. I'm just playing it because I'm like, well, this is cool combat, but I really don't give a shit about, Kratos' story arc anymore.
No. Because it's over, and you already know what the end game is.
You already started the new world. All they can do is go back. Now, what I'm really disappointed about, though, is that they still have not incorporated Kratos' brother.
It was actually they did. It was in one of the the PSP games, and so.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I played one of the revamped versions on the PS3.
remix.
And it was okay at best, but
it was a PSP game.
Yeah, I mean it was I played the revamped version for the PS3, but still, I mean, obviously it wasn't anything special by any means.
So your enemy was your brother then in that one?
He was the final boss, and how the story with that was he was supposed to be the one that was supposed to overthrow Olympus. Initially, and Kratos was not the chosen one, and so initially what happened was Zeus and Athena came in and took him, and essentially put him in Hades. I don't remember exactly what because I don't really care. The story wasn't that good. They put him in Hades and they locked him up there forever because they were afraid that he was going to be the one that was going to overthrow the gods. Obviously, we ended up knowing what happened. So what happened was, is that you go down there and you free him, and he tries to kill you, and you end up teaming up with him to beat the final boss. And I don't even remember who it was, but it was fun to go.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
Nice. All right, that sounds great.
It was great. Thank you.
So Phil, what about BioShock, man?
I got to tell you, it's one of the most immersive games I played in a long time. I would say since Skyrim, but I actually have to say this is more immersive as far as the story goes than Skyrim. I mean, in Skyrim, story is definitely important, but you're still stuck at that kernel that you're just a dragonborn. It doesn't really get much deeper than that.
But other than that, I hate the fact that your character never fucking talks. That bothers me. You don't. Really
and in BioShock you do. You're a viable character, and you get to see yourself through reflection. So there's a very beginning of the game. This is not a spoiler alert or anything, but very beginning of the game, you walk up to this pool where you're supposed to, quote unquote, cleanse yourself as you would before, we all remember going to church as a kid, having to, do the sign of the cross with the holy water before it, as you will,
Blood of Christ.
As it were, rather. So you have to do that, and you have to cleanse your face, and you get to see your face in the reflection of the water. So immediately your character kind of becomes, it becomes you. It makes it more, you become more immersed in the game, I think. And, having him talk throughout the game, and not to mention just the whole light versus dark in the game, not to spoil too much again with the game, but the whole thematic, it really gets into conservative, conservative ideals versus kind of liberal ideals, which is pretty crazy. In this game, everybody's they wanted to escape America to start this Holy Land, where the government was religious based, and it's very interesting. And what's cool about it is that, they made BioShock 1, 2, and 3. BioShock 2 was just an iteration of BioShock 1, right? It wasn't made by the same company. It just kind of played off the same tropes and the same, all it did is played off the same plot from the first one. This one, if you were to not name them BioShocks, there's no way you could ever tell they're the same game, except for the only thing they have in common is that it's all about these people that want to try to start this utopian society. and it ended up becoming dystopian.
But are the games
That's the kernel, I think, behind BioShock. So
are the games actually related though? Like I mean, like from 1, 2, 2, 3, are there similar characters? Is it the same type of society? Is it?
No, no. You could almost compare it to a Final Fantasy, where somebody were to say, well, is Final Fantasy VII related to 8? Well, yeah, I mean, I guess you could say, yeah, because they have
Summons,
chocobos, they have certain things in common, but there's no characters, there's no, except for a select few that carry over into the next game. So it's definitely its own thing. It's its own monster, if you will. So Jesse, let's talk about what's going on in your world. What's in the world of Dr. Jesse Millhouse?
Well, I just finished up my first course of renal endocrine, and learned about all the kidneys, and just doing medicine, man. Learning all about it, trying to stay as detached away from the system as I can while still trying to navigate through it. It's difficult to not be molded by a system that is so rigidly already in place. It's all about jumping through hoops, man. You have to, like, each new day is a new hoop that you have to jump through, and it's like, okay, well, what's the next hoop I have to jump through? And on that same note, I'm starting to realize that what's the true medicine is helping people, and I'm getting pretty proficient with my understanding of the body, and really learning how to assess people with my hands and stuff. And I've actually developed a reputation at school. Most people call me the town shaman. They
Okay.
I was helping these girls out the other day, and they're like, Jesse, I just imagine you with like beads and like like animal teeth around your neck, and like living in a teepee. I was like, okay, well, I guess I could go with that.
Hey man, it's those girls going back to their, going back to the primitive ideals. I wouldn't be complaining about that. They're like, me like Jesse. Jesse more intelligent than like.
Yeah, dude. So it's been
drag him by the hair and take him back to your cave.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's been fun. It's cool learning about the stuff, and the major point is for me is trying to become more in tune with everything and develop awareness. Pretty philosophical areas.
Yeah.
But that's what it's about. Is like I want to be at a point, like you hear about these doctors and stuff about they'll like look at you and they look into your soul and they know exactly who you are and what's wrong with you, and not only just on like a physical level, like you have a torn muscle, but like what's going on in your head and what loops are you stuck in, and how you can help them navigate their way out of those and into a better place. And I'm starting to see medicine more as helping people grow personally, growth and development, than just heat. Like, I know I'm going to fix your broken leg, or give you Tylenol or something.
It's almost like you're going beyond patchwork. It's like,
yeah.
You feel like this, just kind of the industry as a whole is just patchwork. It's like, let's put a Band-Aid on a broken arm, and come back and see us in 4 weeks and see how it's doing.
Well, dude, that's what it is, and it's and they talk about you're just treating the symptoms that somebody has, like, oh, this person hurts in this area, let me do whatever is necessary to make sure that they don't hurt in that area anymore, instead of like working your way down and really digging deep into the individual and understanding what their root cause of this illness is in their life. And I'm starting to understand that most of them is some type of mental thing that somebody has, and it stems from some type of trauma, either if it's a physical trauma. Some things that I'm learning right now is that when we have physical or emotional trauma, that it disrupts our breathing patterns, and we start to hold that trauma within our solar plexus, like pretty much our diaphragm, and it limits the amount of oxygen that we could take into our body. And
so literally, people could have a bad experience, psychological, physical, whatever it may be, and your diaphragm or your breathing basically almost remembers that, and can almost go into a state to where that can cause. I mean, because anxiety attacks can be as a result of lack of oxygen. I mean, stress, lack of oxygen. I mean, tons of things. So it's like almost you're saying that these anxiety attacks are actually, you can actually attribute them to something that's happened psychologically, physically, because your diaphragm, it has a sort of muscle memory, if you will, um, that can almost induce anxiety attacks or certain conditions.
Exactly, and it's almost as like, and they're always present, and these emotions and experiences will bubble up inside of people, and at that moment, the individual has a decision point to make where they could either approach this feeling that they're coming up with, or suppress it again, which is some of the bad areas that you get into is just suppressing those instincts and feelings that your body has, and what's really the coolest part is that we always try and place it like, oh, this is a physical trauma causing a mental disturbance, or this is a mental disturbance causing a physical trauma. And you go to a physician and say, oh, well, I'm having this trouble, and then they assess you and do their physical and all that workup and stuff. They're like, well, I don't find anything physically wrong with you, so I'm going to refer you to a mental health professional. I think there's something psychologically wrong with you. It's such a stigma that is immediately attached to that to people. And then they go see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and they're like, oh, well, I can't really find anything wrong with you. And so there's this big distance between the physical and the mental that needs to be bridged. And there is no segregation between those two. Like, everything physical affects the emotional and mental, and vice versa. So there needs to be some type of melding in between. And I'm kind of finding that I'm learning one of the biggest techniques of osteopathic medicine is the manual manipulation that we do is the healing of touch. Actually, is like really putting your hands on a patient, and it gives them comfort and everything.
Like Reiki is a form of that.
Yeah, all sorts of like body work, and people really don't attribute it to medicine, and they're like, oh, that's just quackery or something, but it works for people. And as much as it's working on an actual level, it's working on such a belief level too. People have a belief in those things, and then that's what works for them. And it shows you the power of the mind. Placebo effect is
placebo. It's almost placebo effect to a certain degree.
Yeah, and placebo effect is
obviously people have been surviving for thousands of years, with the same diseases we have nowadays. I mean, cancer. But I don't think it was as prevalent. We didn't have as much artificial shit that we put in our bodies.
And at a certain point, well, in like going through like the history of medicine, the first part was, most people didn't live long enough to get illnesses because they died at like 20 years old because they had some type of trauma back in the Paleolithic days. So once we got over that area, it became germs that were killing most of the people, that the dirty lifestyles that they were living in. So that that's when the Dark Ages came and the plague came. But as soon as the microscope was discovered and antibiotics were discovered, we moved past that germ stage, and we're actually approaching another one of those tipping points right now, based on the amount of antibiotics that we're giving to people. And
I just read about that. Yeah, it's basically just that it's basically we're going to become immune to antibiotics, or the diseases go about it.
And remind me to go back about antibiotics. There's an interesting theory I have. But moving beyond like that age of germs, is the new one is most of our diseases now, because we're living farther than 50 years old, or when diseases would really catch up with people, we're getting to a place of what's called lifestyle diseases or diet-related diseases, like cancer, heart disease, diabetes, the lung cancer, all the things that are attributed to somebody's decisions they make in the lifestyle that they live, and that how that affects their health later on, because people are starting to live longer, that's the biggest area that needs to be improvement, or that is harming people. And so, my big focus is prevention, of educating people on what are good lifestyle choices. And there's a big variance in what people expect from medicine. We live in America, which is a capitalist, based economy, and that's the way we all operate. And so it gives us the freedom to make our own choices. But in health, a lot of people look to others to tell them what their choices are and what they should do in life. And a lot of the times that could be detrimental. And, you know, they need to come to realization that you are responsible for yourself. You're responsible for your health. So you need to make the right choices, or you're going to have to deal with the consequences of the choices you made. And, you know, if you smoke, don't be upset when you get lung cancer or, you know, bladder cancer or something. It's like, yeah, you made that choice. You made that choice every day for the last 60 years of your life.
It didn't come out of left field.
Yeah, exactly. Like, don't be blindsided by this, but...
that's very interesting. So we were kind of talking about, like, you know, you think kind of, you know, the psyche has a lot to do with you know, physical illnesses. So there's this whole first of all, talk about actually, to go back on one thing that you were kind of talking about, I saw an article the other day that said that 80% of people in America nowadays, when they first feel any type of something out of the norm, they will go to the internet to search for what their, you know, physical, or what ails them. You know, they'll go to the internet and they'll go to these WebMDs and stuff. So if you sit there and say, I'm feeling, you know, a pressure in my chest, and then all of a sudden the first result that comes up is, well, that's probably a heart attack.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? This is like a whole new kind of terrible de-evolution of medicine, of practicing medicine, to where people can type in their symptoms into a search engine and get results back, but like they're so the results are such umbrella results that, you know, it like misdiagnoses people to the extreme.
Yeah, I think it's a blend. I think it's a blessing and a curse, because it's allowing people to educate themselves about themselves. It gives them the tools that they could explore a lot of those areas. But the curse part is that we're getting a lot of hypochondriacs now, and it's breeding that type of behavior that it's like, oh shit, something's really wrong with me. I'm dying, and I need to go see my doctor. But shit, I don't want to pay for it. Like, hope I have insurance. I don't even know what insurance does. And like, yeah, just. Yeah, it's a strange place that, you know, we're moving into an age where information is free to everyone, and you know, it connected in such a cool way. But you know, WebMD, I actually just read a recent book called Nudge, and it was talking about choice architecture and how you can create choices or help guide people to make intelligent choices. And talking about, like, when you download or install software on your computer, there's always like a radio button like install Ask Toolbar, and it's always checked, and you have to opt out of it to actually not install that stuff. And so it's called like an opt-out program or an opt-in program. And they were talking about that for like 401ks, but they were also talking about that for like organ donors, which would be interesting. Instead of having an opt-in program where you elect to opt in for that, you have to opt out, which would make which would increase the amount of organ donations that we have. And the reason they think that is because people that have default ringers that come on phones, they are the most prevalent ringer on that telephone. Like, people I'm not going to say lazy, but they won't spend the time to find their favorite ringer. And, you know, some people will, but the majority will keep the default ringer. And so if you
the same reason that they have these kind of business structures where it's like, hey, you get a free month, but then you have to pay $10 a month after that. Well, 9 people out of 10 will not call in and cancel their subscription before they get charged that second month.
Yeah, dude, and just like the recurring payments, it's a very interesting business model, but people forget about it, you know, out of sight, out of mind kind of thing, and then it's just drawing from their bank account so much.
Yeah, totally. So, you were kind of talking about just kind of you know, the mind-body connection. So I think I posted on your Facebook, or maybe Ryan's Facebook, Vodka's Facebook, about, you know, and I believe it's Lovinger's, you know, the 9 stages of ego development.
Oh, dude, that was a really cool article. I went through that and read it all. It was really beneficial for me, actually.
Yeah, so just the fact that and this is the quote, that most American adults will never develop past stages 4 through 6 on Levenger's 9-stage development scale. Below the 7th stage, most can't even grasp the existing stages of development beyond their own. Less than 1% of the population will ever reach the 9th or quote-unquote integrated stage.
Yeah,
that's pretty. That's pretty interesting. We can show a little Google share. Should we
yes.
share a screenshot of
screen share that? Eric just said if you could post that to him, he'd love to look through it.
So here is the different stages. First stage, pre-social, social and symbiotic. The impulsive stage, self-protective, and what we'll do is we'll figure out a way to put the links up so that anybody watching can visit this.
Definitely.
Conformist stage, self-awareness stage, conscientious stage, the individualistic stage, the autonomous stage, and the integrated stage.
Yeah, and these the last 3 were the ones that say that most people don't really reach those states, right?
Yes. They usually just reach 4 through 6, and only 1% of Americans reach the 9th stage.
1%?
1% reach that integrated state.
So why don't we talk about that? So what is the integrated state? So at the final stage, the ego shows wisdom, broad empathy towards oneself and others, and a capacity to not just be aware of inner conflicts, just like the individual ego, or tolerate inner conflicts like the autonomous ego, but reconcile a number or inner conflicts and make peace with those issues that will remain unsolvable in its experience, that will remain unattainable. The integrated ego finally has a full sense of identity, of what it is, and at this stage it is seeking to understand and actualize my own potentials and to achieve integration of all those multifaceted aspects of myself that have become increasingly vivid as I've moved through the preceding 3 stages. In Levenger's research, this highest stage is reached by less than 1% of U.S. adults.
Yeah. One thing that I thought was just really interesting about that was just reading through those. I personally found myself at a couple different stages, and I've read this in some development stuff that sometimes part of yourself gets stuck in a certain stage, and it's like a bubble that's trapped, kind of holding you back in those stages. And by assessing some of those areas, then you could almost burst the bubble and help you continue your movement up forward. And this actually helped me. Like I told you, Mikkel and I are not doing so hot anymore, and this actually helped me gain a new perspective on what was going on. And I think even just having the awareness of what those stages are will help you move into those stages. Like even just having like an affirmation of what the integrated state is will help you move yourself towards that. And reading that and just understanding like, this is where I want to continue moving forward to, I think is really...
It kind of gives you almost a more finite ideal of reaching a higher level of consciousness.
Yeah.
Because like this is kind of what the higher idea of consciousness is.
Yeah, there was in the autonomous stage, which I feel like the majority of myself is actually moving up through right now, that one of my favorite quotes in there was, an autonomous individual, it takes a village to raise an autonomous individual, I think it says. Let me see.
Yeah, it takes a village to raise and sustain an autonomous ego.
Yeah, and I thought that was so
greater tolerance of ambiguity.
Yeah, I thought that was so awesome because it does. It like, as you're developing it, you really build a network that supports that. You might be autonomous, but you have a support network that holds you up, and like they say, standing on the shoulders of giants. That it's that same type of thing, that once you get to that stage, it's not you individually, which or it's everything that has made you and all the experiences you have accumulated that makes you that autonomous individual. And you have to thank everyone that helped you reach to that ascend to that point, and be your autonomous self, and having an identity that you can be happy with, and you are no longer martyring yourself, and we get into such behavior patterns that we're always hurting ourselves and trying to, but because it's comfortable. When how weird is that we're comfortable in like a self mutilation stage.
Yeah.
That feels good to us, like, because it's so comfortable, even though we hurt from it, that we remain there, which is so wild. And it's like coming to terms with you know, your behaviors and who you are, and working with some of the people that I've, you know, trying to help them with their health and stuff, that, you know, everyone's got addictions, everyone's got some type of you know, mental loop that's playing in their head that they're having difficulties with. And just accepting that, and that's one of my biggest areas that I'm trying to learn, is acceptance of this is how it is, this is the present moment. You know, my understanding of what I can control and what I can't control is starting to emerge, and it's becoming an acceptance of yourself, because and that's true love. Like, true self-love is becoming acceptance of yourself and knowing what's going on, and really loving yourself. And you can't really, you know, my personal viewpoint is I want to be as consistent in my behavior and my words that I'm telling people, as I want to really come from the inner part of me. And you can't, like, you go to a doctor who's 250 pounds and he's telling you to lose weight. Like, how can somebody take advice from somebody like that? And it, you know, I've used the language of monkey see, monkey do. It's not, you know, monkey tell, monkey do. You can't just tell somebody to do something. Like, actions speak so much louder than words. That,
yeah, it was like, I remember growing up, my doctor, he was like, he would smoke a pack and a half a day, and that always tripped me out. I remember, like, being younger and saying to my parents, that doesn't make sense to me that our doctor smokes cigarettes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, or
yeah.
like, it doesn't make sense to me that, like, my dentist has bad teeth.
It shouldn't be that way. And, like, you lose trust in those people. It's like, we have our subconscious identifies those inconsistencies, like people's words and people's actions. Like, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, you know, like those things like that. And, you know, my actions were not consistent with my words, and the unconscious knows that. And trust is a huge thing, especially when you're exposing the inner self and exposing parts of you that you really don't want to let others know about, like your problems and weaknesses and things that you're really scared about. I think people go to the doctor because they're scared and they've got some type of fear that they need to confront, and they've actually got to a point where it's gotten so bad they need help from somebody else.
Yeah, but there's also the other extreme of that people don't go to the doctor because they're so afraid.
Yeah.
And that's a problem too, because it gets to the point to where it's like, oh, hey, by the way, you know, you have this stage of, let's say, you know, you have this stage of cancer that you could have detected, you know, a year ago,
mm-hmm.
you know, just for the sake of argument. So now you have also this generation of, or this not generation, but these, you know, this group of people that are afraid to even go and get diagnosed because they have kind of seen and been exposed to more so than, you know, we've been exposed to more so what it would be like. There's movies of seeing people go through fighting cancer, right? There's movies of people, like, seeing them go through AIDS, and, like, so nobody wants to sit there and go, well, let me go get a test and see if I have that. Let me see if I have that. Like, you know, let me go watch, you know, let me go watch Philadelphia, then go get a test, and if I have that, like, you know, that's great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so that's not, and obviously that's very, you know, that's a stretch, but what I'm saying, moreover, is that people are becoming afraid, and I think that's why, you know, search engines have become more prevalent as being, like, diagnosing people, because they have this, like, fear of going to an establishment and being like, hello, sir, I'm here to check to if I have, like, cancer and/or AIDS. You know, it's like, like, you know, well, I can just look on Google, like, yeah, my chest kind of feels, like, funny. Like, well, you probably have, you know,
you're having a stroke, a heart attack,
you're having a pulmonary embolism.
Yeah, exactly, dude. And it
well, what you're experiencing is a pulmonary embolism. Call the hospital right now.
yeah. And you know, I think that stems from, once again, people's trust in doctors. Like, there is very little of that right now. And so actually there's a saying that's talking about, you know, just like the trust, but the biggest killer is denial. People are in denial of what's actually going on with them, and you know, you think you know something's wrong with it. Your body knows that something's wrong with you, but you deny it, and you're like, I'm fine. Like, I'll be able to get through this. I'm fine. And you know, that's when it develops into that. Well, you should have came in a year ago. You know, that giant mass on your left arm. Yeah, that's cancer.
Well, just to interrupt real quick, in my medical sales history, especially with everything that I do with the respiratory field of COPD, you know, a lot of these people have difficulty breathing, and they're elderly people. They just associated with, you know, getting old. Not necessarily the fact that they've been smoking for 20 years, but the fact that, like, you know, it's a little bit more difficult to walk up the stairs these days. I'm like, well, you know, you're just getting older. You're like, well, that might not necessarily be the case. And this is exactly as you were saying before, you know, yourself, you know, trying to avoid going in there to get the diagnosis that you don't want to hear. That,
Right.
like, you have been making those poor decisions, which will in turn, you know, give you, you know, the answer from your doctor that something is wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
A confirmation of what you think is truly wrong, and it's like, you don't really want that confirmation.
Yeah, yeah.
Which actually brings me into an interesting point. You were talking about, like, you know, people watch all these movies about, you know, these illnesses and stuff, and it's really the story that people start telling themselves to make sense of what's happening to them and make meaning out of their life and what their experience is. That once they do come to that conclusion that, oh, I do have this illness, or I do have this, they start searching for those areas which other people have experienced that in order to make sense of what's happening to them.
Totally, yeah.
And it reminds me of
relating to other people is like probably the number one, you know, the number one thing as far as, you know, comforting you in situations like that, I would say.
Yeah, and you know, finding comfort in somebody else's experience, and you know, it brings me back. That reminds me of what Joseph Campbell, the author, talks about. He's like, stories and myths are the archetype of how we make sense of what's going on in our world. Like, this is how we make sense of what's happening. Otherwise, you know, that's what happens to crazy people, is they can't make sense of what's going on to them. They're not telling themselves a story, or they're telling themselves a fucking wild story that's really far separated from reality.
Yeah. I actually got to, somebody put together, maybe I'll find this link for anyone that wants to check it out, but there was a YouTube video that you could put headphones on, and it simulated what it would sound like to be schizophrenic, of having these kind of voices in your head that are constantly telling you to do something and then not to do something, and then to do, you know, like walking by a car and being like, jump in front of it, no, don't jump in front of it, you know, and being like, you know, like, stab that person, don't stab that person, you know what I mean? Like, just the constant struggle of, like, you know, this, what society kind of expects of you and the norms, and then what, you know, like, that other voice is saying. And it was very interesting to, like, sit there and be like, wow, you know, I mean, I was hearing this shit all day too, and obviously it's simulated, you know, I mean, it's not like they're actually hearing the voices, but, you know, it's just like the same as having an internal dialogue with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's like having, like, multiple internal dialogues, like, over and over, and conflicting internal dialogues.
And we were kind of talking about this the other day, that an internal dialogue is a feedback loop almost that you're giving to yourself. But if you have multiple of those voices that are happening, you're giving yourself sometimes conflicting feedback loops that your assessment of that is like, well, which one do I choose? Which path do I follow? Like, which voice do I listen to?
Right.
And, you know, there's such a stigma attached to a lot of that stuff that it scares people to go get help, or, you know, and because most people don't know how to help that stuff, and they haven't experienced those areas, so they could only, like, sympathize or what they've read about it. They really can't sit down and really, you know, talk to the people about what's going on, which is what's really cool about the psychiatrist Oliver Sacks. He's got mental illness, and he understands. That's why he's so good with these mental ill patients, is because he understands what's going on in their head, and can really sit down and listen to them and sympathize with them and give them empathy. And it's a pretty amazing thing.
Nice.
So
Eric, let's talk about Eric's world.
My world.
Eric, what is going on in the world of Eric?
Oh man,
Give us a week of Eric.
a week of Eric. Well, dude, it's funny that you actually mentioned that, man. Because I'm gonna steal Jesse's spot here real quick. It has been a kind of a roller coaster for me these past 6 months. I have, let's see, for the first time in, as I was mentioning to you before we started the podcast, the first time in the past 3 weeks that I've actually been to a 40-hour work week. Now, for the past 4 years of my life, I've either been going to school and working full time. And so these past 3 weeks, it's been like, I have so much free time on my hands, I don't know what to do with myself. And initially, it was kind of like a depressing feeling, like, am I not being productive? Am I not doing the right things that I'm supposed to be doing? But it almost kind of dawned on me as a realization, I'm actually moving in the direction I've been the happiest I've ever been in my life, where I actually have time to do the things that I want to do to make myself happy. I'm not concerned with, like, Brittany, my ex-girlfriend's concerns. I'm not concerned with the Mint, where I used to be working, as well as One Stop. My boss at Lincare has been telling me how in these past month or 3 weeks to a month, how much better my improvement has been. I actually got a reward recently for being in top in sales in all of Arizona, and so it's been such a different experience for me from where I have been to where I am now. And it's like, it was almost as if, why did I put myself through all of that for so long? But from those experiences of working that many hours has, helped me develop a work ethic to where I can, really apply myself at my day job now, in comparison to having to have 3 different jobs and never have time for myself and be continuously stressed out. And I was telling Jesse, like, this is the first time that I've actually had time for myself, and where I have woken up, like, during the weekend with a full night's rest. 4 years I haven't had that opportunity. Right. And it's like it is such a release of stress, and like a monkey has been lifted off of my back, where I am able to just be happy. And it's just like, that's my new world now. And so it's like what we've been discussing, me and Jesse, like, now that we're both single, and now we have opportunities to go enjoy ourselves and do certain things that we want, like yoga on the weekends. We have had the opportunity now to, or at least especially for me, having more free time, getting up and doing physical activity in the morning, doing boxing drills. And it's like, one thing that we discussed with the game or other things in your life, that getting a physical activity is one of the most crucial things that you can do to improve your well-being. And we are getting up first thing in the morning and, increasing our cardio, increasing our heart rates to boost our metabolisms, so we burn more fat, so we're more healthier people. And doing that in this past, every other day for 2 weeks now has really helped, improve our quality of life. So me lately, dude, I've just been focusing on, my job at Lincare, been kicking ass and taking names, and that's essentially it. Now I am, potentially looking for another job in the future, but right now I'm actually, especially when things start to slow down at Lincare in the summer, we are right around spring, and allergy season is high, and so we, have, hit or miss with some sales, but right now I just feel I'm really scratching the surface and getting into an area that I've never been happier in my entire life. And it is a wonderful, wonderful feeling.
That's great, man. That's great. That's kind of the same for me. Just like my story of just fucking working for this piece of shit reality casting bullshit till August, and then trying to be freelance in LA, which is like an oxymoron in and of itself. And finally getting this job, which is like great. So I know what you mean. So I don't know. I mean, just kind of the message, I guess, the kernel of this is, your 20s are tough. Your 20s are tough, but they'll end up being good as long as you stay adamant. I think that's the lesson in here.
I saw a really article the other day talking about successful people and where they were in their 20s.
I saw that at 25.
Oh yeah, dude! I thought that was so motivational. Like, You
It
know,
was, except for, like, it was like, Mark Zuckerberg. He's 25 and had a fucking multi-million-dollar company. I was like, dude, you don't put Mark Zuckerberg on that list.
yeah, the
Like,
very
you put
last
people
one.
that weren't successful at 25 on that list, assholes. Like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, this guy, he was, like, already a millionaire by 21. What have you done since you've been 25?
Seriously.
I was like, dude, don't put him on the list.
Yeah.
Don't be a dick like that.
well, it's just like talking to my dad, and like, you know, like at times I'm like, I don't feel like I know what I'm doing with my life, or am I doing the right thing? And my dad's just, you know, and he's 65 now, and he's like, and he just looks at me and he shakes his head. He's like, Eric, he's like, you are so much more ahead, and you and your friends and your brother and your sister are so much more ahead than you can actually realize. And he's like, you know, I didn't. He goes, he goes, when I got married to your mother when I was 31, I had a car and a stereo to my name, and like $350 in my bank account. And he's like, you know, he goes, you just don't, you know, life will throw just different things at you in so many different ways, and how you respond to it will determine the type of person that you are. And by you making these decisions of, you know, getting your education and you know, pushing to go for your dreams by working hard and you know, maintaining physical fitness, which is such a big important part of your life, those types of work ethics and things will apply to who you are and how people see you and perceive you, and through that, you know, you're going to be a very successful person. And he's like, he goes, you just don't understand how much further ahead you are than you actually think. And it's another thing that I was an article I read a while ago, and how people our age are so much more stressed out than people who are actually older than us. And I remember Jesse said, what was it? He's like, yeah, they're done. You know what I mean? He's like, they're there. Like, they've been through it all. They had all those experiences, those failures, and those successes. And that's why they're not as stressed as we are. And I feel like, you know, like, it's also like what Uminger said to us when, you know, right when you're graduating college and you're getting out in the world, you know, you're a fucking pledge again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You are at the bottom of the totem pole, and it's not going to be easy. And it's going to be a hard work to bust your ass to get all the way back up to the top again, and to be the kings like we were in college. But you know, that's just a part of life, and the journey to make through your failures and your successes to be who you are.
Yeah, it goes from a 4-year ladder to climb to a 40-year ladder to climb.
Exactly.
Right.
Dude, there's one thing that we it's just the thing that I was talking to you about, the bacteria that condenses.
Oh yeah, dude.
Dude, there was this one thing that me and Jesse have been doing recently. We have been watching the History Channel and the Science Channel like it's in National Geographic, like it's our job.
And H2 Ancient Aliens, man.
Yeah, dude.
but History Channel isn't even history anymore. Like,
Oh, of course not, dude. Of course not.
they have a show called The Bible. Like,
oh, I know, dude. I know. Did you see the picture that they had of Barack Obama on there?
with Devil Barack.
Yeah, dude, that was hilarious. But no, there's this one thing that they said on the Science Channel that was incredibly interesting. It was this, and they think there's a couple theories out that there's this bacteria that floats up into the air and goes into the the stratosphere, or maybe not that high, but in the upper atmosphere. And this bacteria essentially connects itself to water molecules and condenses it into ice. And since it condenses it to ice, it makes it fall. It makes it fall as rain. And also, this bacteria is also one of the essential bacteria that makes plants grow. And this is something that they've just recently discovered, and how they think that there's a new theory out that this bacteria is the one reason why there is so much actual rainfall on planet Earth. And since it's one of the most reasons why there's rainfall on planet Earth, and at the same time the reasons why plants grow, because did you see it? It's a certain type of bacteria that makes plants grow. That's one of the reasons why life exists, is prevalent as it is on planet Earth.
So it's another, just one more factor.
Well, just this bacteria that
not to mention the moon, which was once part of our Earth, supposedly, that because of an asteroid that hit our Earth at the perfect speed, degree, what have yous.
Well,
yeah, that's wow, that's interesting. So that just came out, huh?
Well, I don't know, just came out. I think it was fairly recent, but I think another thing that we were discussing, or not discussing, watching on the Science Channel was Stephen Hawking and how everyone's like we need to find out like all the different crazy things in the universe. And one of the things he pointed out, he's like, you're right. We do need to find out, and keep searching for extraterrestrial life in a sense. He's like, but you know what the most amazing thing is? Planet Earth itself. Look at the most incredible different billions of types of species and crazy things that are actually here. We are the most unique
we
thing.
discover like new species, every day.
Yeah, we are the most unique thing in the universe. Not like everyone's like, oh, Mars is such a wondrous place. No, it's not. Like Earth is. You know what I mean? We have our Earth.
We've explored what is it? 2% or 3% of our seas.
What was that?
We've explored what, 2 or 3% of our seas?
Absolutely. Like we know more about actually Mars and the moon.
Yeah, we know more about space than we do our own oceans. Like for instance, we just caught, well, for the second time in history, we just caught a giant squid on video.
I saw that.
Yeah. So the first time it was like literally just one of their tentacles grabbing onto the camera, but like this time we got the full effect. So I mean, who's to say that we don't have like a carpus megalodon, the largest shark to ever live? I mean.
Oh, absolutely.
It's unexplored areas just as much as space.
Yeah.
So let's see.
That's a very interesting point, talking about, back in history, everyone was an explorer, and that's what was so interesting about it. Like, let's go find America, let's go explore all these places, go sailing on the seas, and then once that kind of came by, and we started exploring space, and now we're exploring the universe beyond just our solar system. But it's like, how far are we going to go out there before we realize, like, this is it, this is the best thing that we've been able to find, and almost turn our exploration internal. Like, the next exploration that people need to go is the journey inside. It's like, that's how little that has been explored from people, is like, what's actually going on inside of you? What's your brain talking about? How well do you know yourself? Stop trying to reach out and search within.
And what's crazy too is that it just kind of seems in life that as large as everything can be macro, the same can be applied to micro.
Yeah.
We will keep finding larger forms of life as will we keep finding smaller forms of life or existence, particles, what have you.
In that same fractal pattern that keeps repeating on multiple scales, which is just
large or small. So to kind of shift some gears here, I got this one for you guys.
Okay.
We're gonna go to a little comedy now because we got our philosophy out of the way, I feel.
Okay.
All right. So, you guys seeing this?
Yeah. Montana State Trooper.
Also, in most of the United States, there's a policy of checking any stalled vehicle on the highway when temperatures drop to single digits or below. So at about 3 a.m. one very cold morning, a Montana State Trooper, Alan Nixon, number 658, responded to a call. There was a car off the shore of the road outside Great Falls, Montana. He located the car stuck deep in the snow and with the engine still running. He pulled up behind the car with his emergency lights on. Trooper walked to the driver's door to find an older man passed out behind the wheel with a nearly empty vodka bottle on the seat beside him. All right? Driver comes awake when the trooper taps on his window. Seeing the rotating lights in his rearview mirror, the state trooper standing next to his car, the man panicked. He jerked the gear shift into drive and hit the gas. So the car's speedometer starts showing 20, 30, 40, and then 50 miles an hour. But it's still stuck in the snow while the wheels are spinning, keep in mind. So Trooper Nixon, having a sense of humor, began running in place next to the speeding but stationary car. The driver was totally freaked out, thinking the trooper was actually keeping up with him at 50 miles an hour. And this goes on for about 30 seconds, and the trooper yells, pull over. The man nodded, turned his wheel, and stopped the engine. Needless to say, the man from North Dakota was arrested. He was probably still shaking his head over how the hell a state Montana trooper could run 50 miles an hour. Who says state troopers don't have a sense of humor? This is pretty good, man.
That's
for somebody to sit there and think on their feet like that quick, to be like, well, I'm just gonna act like I'm running. I'm just gonna act like I'm running. Yeah, like Dumb and Dumber. Like, you know, if you do this, it feels like you're running at an excellent rate of speed. You know?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I saw one time on Cops, a guy who was in a high-speed car chase on the freeway. The guy ran out of gas, and then so he ran out of gas, and then he got out of the car and just started pushing his car. And the cops didn't arrest him. They let him do it for a while. Just let him push his car for like 200 yards. I mean, there was no one on the freeway, and then you could hear the people on the news talking about it, and also you could hear the cops like over the radio just laughing their asses off at this guy. And they were discussing with each other how long they were going to let him push it before they apprehended him. It was
That he was out of gas?
yeah, exactly right.
That's funny. All right, so, and then also, just since this was a recent subject of discussion, we are going to put this to rest. So can you guys see this here?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Can Wolverine get drunk? So here is, I don't know which issue this is from, but this is Wolverine and Spider-Man interacting. All right, so first panel we have Spider-Man talking. I mean, with the spider strength and everything, you know, I don't think it would be responsible. So Wolverine responding in a drunken stupor, and your responsibility. You know what your problem is. I'm going to tell you. Oh, God, you're drunk, Spider-Man says. Your problem is you always got to be the good guy. You know, that's hard. Being good guy all the time. I used to think I was a good guy, but then you get older and learn you might not be all that good.
I like your Wolverine voice, bro.
Thanks. You know, I've been working on it. Find that you've broken every promise you've ever made to yourself. And, yeah, what's this? You know, and, you know, here's Spider-Man. Are you all right? He's kind of a bitch. He's like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just a little hungover. What was I saying? So he's starting to sober up, right? So, you know, and then he goes, oh, yeah, my point is, you know, you can't be the good guy all the time. So the whole thing is that Wolverine can get completely shit-faced. He just has to drink enough alcohol back to back to back. He gets shit-faced for about, you know, 5-10 minutes, gets a hangover for probably 30 seconds, and then sobers up. So that is the conclusion, according to the comic book, as you can see.
I'm glad that was laid to rest finally.
So it's kind of like taking selfie.
It was, yeah. Jesse definitely laid it to rest.
That's funny.
That is the Marvel evidence that.
I like my comment back to that kid. He seemed like the main discusser with you about that subject.
Yeah.
He brought up Captain America and was like, why can't he get drunk?
And your comment back was classic, by the way. A man named Captain America, that should like, or somebody that should never be able to get drunk should not be named.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
All right, so I got one more for you guys. So this happened. So.
Oh, this is great.
Oh yeah, dude.
You guys saw this, so yeah. So some guy that didn't know Tom Hanks got shit-faced at a bar. And Tom Hanks was there with a few friends, and they went over to the guy's phone and took pictures of Tom Hanks.
That's how awesome of a thing to wake up to.
Yeah, okay, so that's what I wanted to talk about. So yeah, what do you think about that?
It's obviously fucking awesome. It's awesome, dude. It also just goes to show that Tom Hanks is an amazingly cool person. That he would know, because I remember reading the story about it. He went to go check on the guy to make sure that he was okay. And in the process of learning that the guy was just shit-faced and passed out, you know, he's like, hey, how about we take a phone and, you know, take some pictures? And that wasn't the only one either. There were multiple pictures that Tom took with the guy. And it's just like, that's awesome.
Yeah. It reminds me of Bill Murray and the stories about him of, like, jumping behind the bar. And
oh, yeah. And he can always just say, you'll never, like, nobody will ever believe this.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all he has to say. Nobody will ever believe this.
We should do a little skit or something like that to try and find, you know, attract him to come do one of those with us.
Totally. Try to fucking lure Bill Murray in somehow.
Yeah, dude, start doing trolls of him or something.
Troll Bill Murray. Now that's a challenge right there.
It is a challenge.
All right. Well, what do you say? Until next week.
I got one. You know, we were talking about. Well, actually, we'll save those for next week. That'll be good. Yeah, dude, it was a good first little session.
I thought so too. All right. So we have Phil Ellison signing off, and
Jesse Miller signing off. This is the Phil and Jesse Show. Thank you very much for our guest Eric Custer to come and share his knowledge with us today.
My knowledge.
yeah.
Thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
All right. Until next time.
Till next time.
Stay true to thy own self.
See you, bud.